Welcome to Bangkok's Soi Cowboy. In today's video, we're going to be discussing red flags when dating Thai girls. And I want you to get involved down in the comments because there's going to be plenty of ones that I miss. And while some of these may seem really obvious, some of you need reminding. So first off, we'll start with an easy one, and that's don't date a girl that works in a bar. Now, I want to preface this by saying I have nothing against girls that work in bars. I have plenty of friends that work in bars. I would never judge someone based on how they choose to provide for their family and for themselves. There is a few different levels to this, and we'll break them all down. But basically, my opinion on this is if you do choose to go out with a girl that works in a bar, you're ultimately setting yourself up for failure. So if you're coming out here on holidays and you're just here to have some fun, absolutely go for it. It's a great way to meet people, and you'll meet some really awesome people. A lot of them are a bunch of fun. But what I'm talking about here is more long-term. If you're deciding to live here or spend a decent amount of time here and you're looking for someone that you can kind of settle down with. There is different levels, as I mentioned. So you've got girls that work in go-go bars or whatever, and obviously that's not the type of person that you would want to have a meaningful relationship with if they're continuing to do that work, obviously. And then you've got, the girls that work in all different types of bars, Pattaya, Soi 6, a lot of those bars are sort of glorified brothels. And again, it's not to say that there aren't great people working there. It's just if you're looking for someone to settle down with, that might not be your first choice. So where it gets tricky with the don't date girls that work in bars is what about the normal bars or bars that don't allow bar fines or allow you to take the girls home or whatever? And that's going to depend entirely on the person. What you need to understand is if you are dating a girl that works in a bar, essentially she's going to be around guys all the time. She's going to have guys constantly hitting on her, guys that want to get her phone number, her social media or whatever, people that will build a relationship with her. And you're just going to have to accept that. And whether you can accept that or not is entirely up to you. But again, this is why I would say choosing someone that works in a bar is probably not the first choice. I think we've all known someone that's fallen in love with a girl that works in a bar, and everyone's got that. She's different, bro. Everyone's had someone say that to them at some point. There's all different things. Girls will be like, oh, I don't go home with customers or whatever, and they can show the pay slip at the end of the month. But I mean, there's loopholes around that. They can have a second pay slip or put it on their friend's pay slip or whatever, and they'll reimburse them. So, not to say that you can't trust any of these girls, but I just don't think it's a good idea. If you're looking for someone to be serious with, it's just going to end up just leading to heartbreak, really. Now, the second one, and this is a fun one, 2 phones. So there's very few reasons why someone would actually need 2 phones here. Some people may run a business and they need a business phone, but then if they do that, then ideally when the business is closed or after hours, that phone will be turned off and left at home, which is usually not the case here. So why 2 phones? The 2 phones thing is usually from someone who has an overseas boyfriend or a sponsor or something like that. Sometimes they have multiple, but basically that's a phone that they can be contacted on at any time. It may have a separate social media account. Basically they're living 2 lives by having these 2 different phones. I know of instances where people have a tracking app or whatever on the phone, because if someone's your overseas boyfriend or partner, they're sending you money, then they're going to want to know what you're doing, what you're up to. So they'll have the tracking app on the phone so they can build that trust. But basically, there's no reason for anyone to have 2 phones, especially with, you can have multiple social media accounts on one phone. You can have multiple phone numbers on one phone now. So usually if they have 2 phones, that's a bit of a red flag. Now, like I said, there may be a legitimate reason why people would have 2 phones, but I would sort of question that. I'd be curious as to why. And something you can also keep track on is how quickly do they reply on one phone as opposed to the other. Which phone do your messages come on, and how much time do they spend on each phone? You can sort of just look at these things and get an idea of exactly what they're doing. And like I said, while it may not be sinister, it might be as well. So one thing to keep tabs on is how quickly do they reply on the phone to you as opposed to the phone on someone else, because some girls, they'll take forever to reply to you, but you'll see the second they get a message on that other phone, they pick it up and reply right away. So that's also an indication as to how busy they are and how much they prioritize each person on each phone, essentially. Now, number 3, and I've got 2 left after this, and that's to be aware of girls that travel a lot. And this might not be a red flag, but just something to be aware of. And I'm not talking about travel like within Thailand or whatever. I'm talking about travel to Western countries, to international countries where she may have a boyfriend or a sponsor or something like that. Now, a quick look on social media, you'll be able to see a lot of these girls, especially the really pretty ones, they live the life. They get flown all over the world. I've got a friend that's over in Dubai at the moment, just absolutely living it up. Her Instagram stories are absolutely epic. Lunch in Burj Khalifa, champagne Cristal by the pool, just living the good life, honestly. And she, as an example, is someone that gets flown all around the world really by guys, and that's something you need to be aware of if they've traveled a lot to these other countries. You just need to ask the question as to why, and are they still with any of these people or whatever. So like I said, not necessarily a red flag, but something you need to be aware of. If they're repeatedly going back to the same countries, then obviously there's someone there that they keep going back to see. You also can kind of get an idea by which countries they're visiting and how frequently they're traveling. But I love to travel personally. I'm sure if you're watching this, you also do. You know how expensive travel is, and you can just sort of figure out how that's all being funded. If they're doing family trips, then that's a no-brainer. But yeah, these frequent trips to Dubai, that's something you need to be aware of for sure. All right, time for a change of location. So I just want to quickly say, well, a lot of these seem really obvious, especially if you've been out here or spent a lot of time out here. You'll know most of these already, but a lot of people that watch the channel, they haven't spent much time out here. Some of them have never been out here. So it's sort of to educate, and I think we're all guilty of either falling for someone that falls into one of these categories, or if not, we all know someone that has fallen for someone in one of these categories. Now, next up, we have people that don't work or study or do anything really, and this might not be a red flag for everybody. If you're older and you're retired, you may prefer that, someone who doesn't have anything that they need to be doing. But if you're younger and you want to be going out and dating and doing activities, this may be something that could be a red flag. Now, the caveats to this are, why are they not doing anything? Are they not working? How are they able to support themselves and fund their lifestyle? So if they don't work and they don't come from, you know, there's HISO people here, people that come from wealthy families, and they don't need to work or study or do anything. But there's plenty of other people out here that don't seem to work or have a job or have anything that they're doing, yet they're still going out, doing all these things, traveling around and living this pretty glamorous looking lifestyle. And the question you need to ask is, how is all that funded basically? What you need to keep in mind is, if your partner's not working or doing anything, they'll become dependent on you, and you'll need to be able to support them financially, and also not just them, but everything that comes along with that. So if they have family members that get sick and they need money for medical assistance or whatever it may be, you'll be sort of held to that for as long as you decide to stay with that person. Now, if you're well off and you're happy to do all that and that's not a problem for you, then that's great. But for younger people, if you're just meeting someone and you've got a long road ahead of you, that's a hell of a commitment that you're getting yourself into. And there may even be times where you question, does this person actually like you, or is it more of a financial transaction? For me personally, that's why I love living in such a big city like Bangkok. You know, there's 10 million people living here, and the majority of the people here have their own dreams and aspirations and things that they would like to achieve. I have my own dreams and aspirations, and hopefully we can do that together, as opposed to having someone that's completely dependent on you all the time. And I'm not talking about financially. I more mean they've got their own life, you've got your own life, and you can bring them together. But again, you know, this is going to be different for everyone. The older people, if you're retired and you want someone to just sit on a beach with you and relax all day, then that makes perfect sense to me. It is hot today, so I came to cool off with a beer. Cheers. I think the last point I want to make is to listen to your head and not your heart, because it's so easy to find someone you like them and you ignore all the little warning signs. And I think if you need to try and convince your friends, she's different, bro, there's a good chance she probably isn't. I think we've all been through this at some point. You meet a girl and then it doesn't work out or whatever, and at the end you're like, yeah, well, as you look at it now, all the warning signs were there, you just chose to ignore them. So look for those warning signs and don't rush into anything, because what happens here, I've seen it happen countless times, is people will go out with these girls and you get to know them and you're like, yeah, I know that she's a bar girl or whatever, but it's not serious now. But what inevitably ends up happening is you develop feelings for each other, and then you're kind of trapped in that situation of, okay, now what do I do? I'm sure there's a ton that I left out, plenty of red flags. Leave a comment down below and let's discuss it more down there. But for now, I'm going to enjoy this beer. I'll see you next time.